Fresno, California, is the story of a city that feeds a quarter of the entire nation, yet can't feed itself. It is the fifth largest city in the richest state in the richest country on earth, and for decades it has held a distinction no city wants, one of the highest concentrated poverty rates in America. Higher than Detroit, higher than Cleveland. In 2005, it was higher than New Orleans. California is the world's fifth largest economy. It has more billionaires than any nation outside the United States other than China. And yet, when you adjust for cost of living, California also has the highest poverty rate in the country. Nowhere is that contradiction more visible than in the Central Valley, and nowhere in the Central Valley is it more stark than Fresno. So, how did this happen? How does a city surrounded by $9 billion worth of agriculture, sitting in a state that mints tech billionaires like coins, end up feeling like it belongs in a completely different country? To understand Fresno, you have to start with the railroad. In 1872, the Central Pacific Railroad dropped a station in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley, and a town sprouted around it. By the 1870s, a man named Francis Eisen had figured out how to sun-dry grapes, and just like that, Fresno became the raisin capital of the world. Sun-Maid was founded here in 1912. The soil was impossibly fertile, fed by the Central Valley Project's vast water infrastructure. Farmers discovered they could grow 350 different crops, many of them not commercially viable anywhere else in the nation. Immigrants poured in from everywhere: Italians, Armenians, Japanese, Mexicans, Filipinos, all drawn by the promise of agricultural work. Fresno boomed. But here is the thing about an economy built on agriculture. The wealth does not distribute the way it does in other industries. The people who own the land prosper. The people who work the land often do not. This divide became crystal clear during the farm worker movements of the 1960s, when Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers organized strikes in these very fields, fighting for basic rights and living wages. That divide was baked into Fresno's DNA from the very beginning. The Central Valley today has the widest income gap of any region in California. Households at the top earn 14 times what households at the bottom earn. And at the bottom, families in the lowest 10% make less than $10,000 a year. Then came the machines. In the mid-1950s, the mechanical tomato harvester arrived in the Central Valley, and within 5 years it had wiped out 82% of tomato growers and 32,000 farm worker jobs. Just gone. An entire class of workers were made obsolete almost overnight. Those workers did not have savings, they did not have degrees, they did not have anywhere else to go. They stayed in Fresno, and Fresno's poverty deepened. Today, over 20% of Fresno's population lives below the poverty line, roughly 108,000 people. The county's unemployment rate sits at 9.5%, far above both the state and national average. And it gets worse when you break it down by race. More than 55% of black households and nearly 59% of Latino households in Fresno County are in what researchers call relative poverty, meaning they do not earn enough to maintain even the average standard of living for their own community. For every dollar a white family earns in California, a Latino family earns 52 cents. In Silicon Valley, just a few hours north, that drops to 33 cents. The median household income in Fresno is about $70,000. That might sound reasonable until you realize California's median is over $100,000, and the cost of living keeps climbing. Rents in Fresno County jumped nearly 11% in a single year after the pandemic. Renters need to earn 1.6 times the state minimum wage just to afford the average monthly rent. And 42% of homes in the county have at least one substandard condition. This is not just poverty, it is structural neglect. And then there is the air. The Central Valley sits in a geographic bowl, pinched between the Coast Range and the Sierra Nevada. Polluted air gets trapped and just sits there, monitored by the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, which consistently ranks the region among the worst air regions in the nation for air quality. Fresno historically averaged 3 days a year above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. By the end of this century, projections say that number will hit 59 days. The aquifers beneath the valley have been pumped nearly dry through decades of drought, managed by entities like the Westlands Water District, and the remaining water is often contaminated with nitrates and salts. The people breathing the worst air and drinking the worst water in California are the same people earning the least. Meanwhile, education has not provided the escape route it was supposed to. Fresno Unified is the third largest school district in the state, and it consistently ranks near the bottom among large urban districts nationwide in reading and math. Nearly half of Fresno Unified students perform below grade level. California State University Fresno serves the region, but many students still struggle with the educational gaps created by underfunded K through 12 systems. Even the University of California Merced, the only UC campus in the Central Valley, has not been able to fully bridge the education divide. Programs like the African American Academic Acceleration Initiative have shown promise, providing support to more than 1,000 students, but systemic challenges persist. Teachers Union President Manuel Bonilla publicly criticized the district for abandoning its own reform programs before they had time to work. So where does that leave Fresno? Trapped, it would seem. An agricultural economy facing automation that could eliminate half of its jobs in 20 years. Environmental crises are compounding on every front. Educational outcomes that lag the state. A poverty rate that has not budged meaningfully in decades. But there are cracks of light breaking through, and they're worth paying attention to. Tech employment in Fresno has shown growth in recent years, with the city now hosting over 400 tech companies, contributing roughly $1.9 billion to the local economy. However, the sector has faced significant challenges, including the high-profile collapse of what was once considered a flagship local success story. The promise of tech as a transformative force for the Central Valley remains, but it requires more sustainable and transparent approaches to truly benefit local communities. Then there's the high-speed rail. Love it or hate it, and plenty of people hate it. The project is physically transforming the Central Valley right now. 171 miles are under design and construction between Merced and Bakersfield. Nearly 80 miles of guideway are complete. Over 16,000 jobs have been created, with 30% of work hours reserved for people living in economically distressed areas. Construction on Fresno's downtown station could begin as early as 2027, with passenger service projected between 2030 and 2033. Mayor Jerry Dyer has called it a game changer for the valley. Critics like Fresno State student Claire Palsgard call it a massive waste of taxpayer dollars, pointing to a price tag that has ballooned to somewhere between $89 billion and $128 billion. Both perspectives hold uncomfortable truths. The city has also secured nearly $300 million for downtown infrastructure, new housing, parks, transit, sidewalks, and stormwater systems. Governor Newsom's office committed $250 million over 3 years, though only $50 million has been released so far. The goal is ambitious: a downtown that can eventually house 75,000 people, transforming a hollowed-out core into a living neighborhood. Fresno sits at an inflection point. At least 150 mid-sized American cities like Fresno are, in many observers' words, bursting at the seams with trapped potential. That phrase captures something essential about this place. Fresno has never lacked resources. It has lacked investment. It has lacked attention. It has lacked the political will to redirect the state's extraordinary wealth toward its most vulnerable communities. California is nothing if not a land of contrast. A state with more Forbes 400 members than any other and more homeless people than any other, nearly 25% of the entire national total. Fresno is where that contrast becomes impossible to ignore. A city that grows the food, breathes the pollution, and waits for the prosperity that always seems to be heading somewhere else. Whether the high-speed rail, the ongoing tech investments, and the downtown revitalization will finally change that story remains to be seen. But for 500,000 people in the heart of the Golden State, the question is not abstract. It is the difference between being left behind and being brought along.